Breaking news! The Miami Dolphins-Chicago Bears practice wasn't just football. It was chaos, drama, and a reality check all rolled into one. From sloppy turnovers to unexpected fights, and even Mike McDaniel showing a side of himself we've never seen before, this wasn't your typical summer practice. The offense? Shaky. The defense? Ferocious. And amidst all of this, key players made headlines for both good and bad reasons. If the Dolphins are serious about chasing the Super Bowl this year, days like this can't become the norm. But after what I saw, there are some serious questions we need to discuss, and not all of them have easy answers. I'll give you all the details I have. But before we get started, be sure to like this if you've been a true Dolphins fan for over 20 years. It's always amazing to see fans of all ages wearing teal and orange. If you can, leave a comment saying, "Go Dolphins! My heart bleeds teal and orange." Today's big headline is the joint practice with the Chicago Bears, and let's just say, the Dolphins offense came out of it looking like they forgot to set the alarm clock. The Bears defense, without even having their top corner Jalen Johnson on the field, completely outplayed Miami's offense. Yes, Tyreek Hill was out. Yes, Austin Jackson was still missing from the O-line. But even factoring that in, the struggles were real. Chicago's front, led by Montez Sweat, Grady Jarrett, and Jervin Dexter, put serious pressure on Tua Tagovailoa all day, and it showed. Tua, who had only thrown one interception all camp before this, tossed 3 picks against the Bears. Tremaine Edmonds got him in the end zone. Kevin Byard took another, and the last was just another rough moment in a day that Tua will want to forget. We can talk about getting the rust out and defenses being ahead of offenses early in camp, but there's no spinning it. 3 turnovers from your starting quarterback in one practice is a concern. And Tua wasn't the only one coughing it up. Alexander Mattison, who's been right behind Devon Achane as one of Miami's most effective backs in camp, fumbled twice. He promised reporters that it won't happen again, but this is the type of sloppiness that costs games, especially when you're facing elite defenses. Remember, this was one of the key storylines going into the practice. Could Miami's O-line hold up? And would Tua look clearly better than rookie Caleb Williams? The answer to both, not really. Tua may have still outperformed Williams slightly, but it wasn't the commanding performance we wanted to see. On the flip side, the Dolphins' defense came to play. Both defenses actually dominated, but Miami's front 7 showed once again why it might be one of the most underrated units in the NFL. The pass rush was relentless. Jordan Brooks came on blitzes, Bradley Chubb had big moments, and Chop Robinson showed flashes. This is a trio that, when healthy alongside Jalen Phillips, can absolutely be top 10 in the league. And it wasn't just the line, the secondary held its own as well. That brings us to one of the biggest scare moments of the day. Jack Jones going down and getting carted off. Social media lit up with panic, but it turns out it was just cramps. He was even smiling on the cart, and later confirmed on Twitter that he's all good. That's a huge relief because Jones has looked like one of the best corners in camp and, in my view, should start opposite Storm Duck if the season started tomorrow. He even laid a huge hit in practice that had the entire defense fired up, a side of his game we don't usually talk about. And as if the turnovers and defensive dominance weren't enough drama, there were fights. Multiple. Mike McDaniel himself ran in to break one up, which is something I never thought I'd see. He's always been seen as more of the calm, calculated type, but sprinting in Vrabel style? That's a different energy. We even saw Jordan Brooks get into it with one of his own teammates. No name reported, but Zach Sealer stepped in to break it up. According to Minkah Fitzpatrick, Brooks is just a fiery leader holding teammates to high standards. That kind of accountability is exactly what this defense needs, especially if the offense is still figuring things out. Here's where things stand heading into the preseason game against Chicago. Caleb Williams isn't playing, and it's likely the Dolphins starters won't either. Expect to see Zach Wilson and Skylar Thompson split the snaps. But the bigger picture? The offense needs to clean up the mistakes, the defense needs to keep its edge, and we need to see if this team can match the fire we saw in these joint practices when it counts on Sundays. If the Dolphins are going to avoid that slow start, the answer begins in the trenches. The offensive line simply has to be better, and while missing Austin Jackson is a legitimate factor, the lack of depth is glaring. We saw what happens when a pass rush like Chicago's, which isn't even considered top 3 in the NFL, consistently gets home. Tua is forced into bad throws, timing gets disrupted, and drives die before they even start. Chris Grier has had years to fix this O-line issue, and yet here we are again, still talking about the same problem. That's the type of front office negligence that holds a team back from real playoff runs, let alone a Super Bowl. The Dolphins' skill positions can match almost any team in the league when healthy. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and now even depth pieces like Madison when he's holding onto the football. But all of that is meaningless if Tua doesn't have time to operate. Against Chicago, you saw it clearly. Without the quick strike rhythm and clean pockets, this offense sputters. And that's not even against playoff caliber competition yet. Next week they face Detroit in joint practices, and that Lions defensive front is even nastier. That's why the defensive performance in this Bears practice feels like a double-edged sword. Yes, Miami's defense was dominant, creating pressure, forcing mistakes, and flying to the football. That's encouraging. But it also raises the question, is the defense actually this good, or is the offense helping them look better than they are in camp? When your own quarterback and running backs are turning the ball over at this rate, it's tough to gauge how it will translate when the bullets are live. Jack Jones' emergence is a genuine bright spot, though. Since arriving, he's been consistent, aggressive, and surprisingly physical. His chemistry with the rest of the secondary is building fast, and pairing him with Storm Duck while using Mike Hilton in the slot could give Miami one of the most versatile DB groups in the AFC. That physical hit he delivered in practice isn't just a highlight, it's a sign he's embracing the complete role, not just playing for interceptions. The fight situations might have some fans concerned, but honestly, it could be exactly what this locker room needs. Mike McDaniel showing some fire by charging into a skirmish sends a message. He's not just here for the schematics and the quirky press conferences. He's willing to get in the middle of the action for his guys. And Jordan Brooks, that kind of on-field accountability, even when it means getting in a teammate's face, is how you build a defense that refuses to accept mediocrity. Still, the truth is unavoidable. Until this offense finds its rhythm, the Dolphins are going to be leaning heavily on their defense. If the turnovers continue into the regular season, that means shorter fields for opponents and more pressure on Miami's front seven to bail the team out week after week. That's a dangerous way to live in the NFL, especially with a schedule that's not going to give them much breathing room early on. Next week's joint practice against Detroit is more than just another training camp session. It's a measuring stick. The Lions' pass rush is stronger than Chicago's, but their secondary is banged up, meaning Tua will have opportunities to test deep connections with Waddle and, hopefully, Tyreek if he's back on the field. If the offense struggles again, the conversation heading into the season is going to shift from slow start to serious concerns. So now the question is, will Miami respond to this wake-up call, or are we in for another year where the defense has to drag the offense to the finish line? Let's start with the offense, because that's where the story turns sour. The Dolphins came in shorthanded, Tyreek Hill didn't practice, Austin Jackson was still sidelined, but even with those excuses on the table, what unfolded was rough. Tua Tagovailoa, who had been sharp all camp, suddenly unraveled with 3 interceptions in one practice. Tremaine Edmonds and Kevin Byard were feasting, and Chicago's pass rush had Tua under constant pressure. It wasn't just the quarterback either. Alexander Madison, one of the brighter surprises in camp so far, fumbled twice. That's the kind of ball security that will send a running back to the bench in real games. When you stack Tua's turnovers with Madison's, you've got a day that can only be described as an offensive meltdown. And yet, as bad as the offense looked, the defense came out of this looking like a juggernaut. Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, and Jordan Brooks were everywhere, collapsing pockets and blowing up plays before they had a chance to develop. The front seven looked like they could go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league, and even the secondary was holding strong until the scare with Jack Jones. Seeing him carted off had Dolphins fans spiraling, but it turned out to be just cramps. A close call,